All right, welcome to Signature 2020. We are thrilled to have each of you here this week. My name is Alexis Holliday, and I'm one of the Western District Counselors for TBSigma. Before we begin, if you'd like, you can go ahead and update your name, chapter, and pronouns in your Zoom window if you would so choose. Today, we are joined by Belen Vera from Fresno State, and she will be sharing a presentation entitled Being an Accessibility Advocate. Again, like many of our presentations this week, very timely, really important information. So I'm really happy that you've all attended today and really glad to have Belen here to share her expertise and her experience so you can take this information back to your chapter and make sure that we can include all sisters of all abilities. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and kick it over to Belen and she can take it from here.
Thank you, Alexis, and thanks for asking me to be a part of this. I don't have my chapter or my pronouns on my Zoom name, and if I tried to figure out how to change that right now, it would take too long. So I'm just going to tell you my pronouns are she and her, and I hail from Fresno State and the Eta Omega chapter. So that is I am an alumna of Fresno State. So let me get my PowerPoint up here. I think I know how to do that. Let's see. It's gonna be in. I've only been using Zoom for how long now, and I can't figure this out. Okay. Okay, can people see that? Yes, thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. So we're going to talk today about being an accessibility advocate. And what does that mean? That means that we're going to be talking about essentially how to assist sisters with disabilities and learning how you can be an advocate for those students, students inside and outside of your chapter. And so I am currently with the Services for Students with Disabilities office at Fresno State. So like I said, I graduated from Fresno State and I came back and I am working there and I love it. So I'm little introduction page here so you can see me and all my glory when I was in college, however many years ago. So I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology, a minor in music, and then I went on to do my master's in counseling and student services. I also obtained my pupil personnel services credential, which allows me to be a high school counselor in the state of California. With my master's degree, I don't think I really planned or intended on working within the realm of disabilities, but they say that hindsight is 20/20, and I would completely agree with that because looking back at just some of the experiences of high school and early college, I was very active and very involved within Special Olympics and the Junior Larks Club at our high school, which assists kids with developmental disabilities, and again goes into the Special Olympics. And so I think that I wasn't intending it, but it ended up working out perfectly, and I'm very thrilled to be here at Fresno State in the SSD office, and I've been here since 2018, so this will be rounding out going into my third year with SSD. So why is it important to talk about being an advocate? First of all, it's just the right thing to do if we're going off of a moral compass, right? It's just the good thing, the right thing. But honestly, it comes down to, from the university's perspective, that it is the law. And so they do have to follow ADA law. And a little bit of background on the ADA. It was first signed into law on July 26th, 1990. So we actually just celebrated the 30th year of it being signed into law. So yay, very exciting. That was Sunday. What that meant for individuals with disabilities was that they were now full-fledged citizens, and they were able to, legally participate in work, in school. They were granted legal protections. And, you know, if we think about that, and we stop and think about, one, what that statement means of someone being granted legal protection, and two, thinking about how that wasn't that long ago. 30 years is not that long, for us to say that we have quote unquote protected individuals with disabilities, and we have given them the full right and the full access to education and work, and many other things, just even stores and restaurants and things like that. And so it's to me, it's one of those things that I just like, every time I think about it, it's like, you know, we've come so far, but at the same time, I still feel like we have so much further to go. And, you know, and I think that moving into the ADA Amendments Act of 2008, that kind of channeled even more. It allowed for the expansion of the term of disability. So now individuals with chronic illness, individuals with cancer, diabetes, epilepsy are now included in that broad term of disability. And when we think about legal actions and lawsuits and things like that, when the ADA was first signed into law in 1990, any type of lawsuit against a company, place of business, etc., they would make the individual go through this huge burden to come up with proof of their disability, which for some of the disabilities are not, you know, there's not a whole lot of proof beyond, yes, I have cancer, or yes, I have epilepsy, or I have diabetes. But they would make them go through these grueling processes to come up with the fact that, yes, I have a disability. And now, after the Amendments Act of 2008, the focus is on whether or not discrimination has occurred, rather than if the person has a disability, which has completely changed the game for a lot of individuals. And so, you know, that's one of those things that I just like to bring that up. This whole presentation is not going to be on the ADA, I promise, but it's just a background of where we're at as a country, and how, you know, this is something that is very important, and it's very new, to be quite frank. You know, 30 years is not a long time, and there are still a lot of things that people are figuring out. And so the information that I'm going to present to you today, if you just take one thing away, and again, how to be an advocate, connect with people on your campus, that's really what this is all about. Because you're not going to learn 30 years of legal actions, you know, in an hour tonight. And so I really just want to kind of give you just a little bit of background on the ADA and kind of where we stand, and just wish you well in doing the best you can with being an advocate. So let me move into giving you some understanding and some tips. So understanding accommodations. So you guys may have heard this word before. It's literally in my title at my position. And I say this word 1,000 times a day. But what accommodations are, for those of you who may not know, are they're an alteration of the environment, an alteration of the curriculum format, or maybe adding or subtracting equipment that allows an individual with a disability to gain access to content and or complete assigned tasks. So an example of an accommodation is going to be maybe somebody with a learning disability is going to receive extended time to take their exam because the processing for them is going to take a little bit longer than someone without a learning disability. And then they could also be granted the ability to take their test in a quiet environment outside of the classroom. And so that is an accommodation where we're not giving the individual a new test. We're not giving them a 5-question test and saying, okay, that's all you have to know. we're giving them the same exact exam that students inside the class are receiving. They're just getting a little bit extra time, or maybe they get to take it in a quiet environment where there's no distractions for them. An accommodation is also very much something that you all have probably used, I'm assuming. So I'm assuming we've all used the elevator at places, right? Yes. Thumbs up, shake your head if we've used an elevator. That's an accommodation. Elevators, there's, I don't know if you guys on your campuses, I know people are from everywhere, but Janelle, Fresno State, we have some buildings that do not have elevators, right? And they have bridges across because there's a building next to it that has an elevator. That's because those buildings were built prior to 1990, and the need to have elevators in buildings. And so that's one of those things where you they have to come up with ways after the fact, and adding elevators on the outside of buildings and all that fun stuff. But elevators are an accommodation. Curb cuts. So if you've ever been to a grocery store and you're pushing your cart up onto the sidewalk or down from the sidewalk, and there's like a little cut or a little space that makes it easy, and you're accessing the sidewalk to the same level as the parking lot, that's meant for individuals with disabilities, so that someone in a wheelchair can get up into the store or up on the curb of the store easier than having to actually like try to jump up on that step or that curb. But those come in handy for when you're shopping with your grocery cart, moms with strollers, people with bikes, you know, it's everybody. And again, that's one of those topics that I could have an entire presentation on universal design and how accommodations benefit everybody, but sometimes they are for the benefit of everyone rather than just individuals with disabilities. Let's see. So the student's role, and what I mean by students here is the student with a disability. What is their role on campus when they go to a university? I keep wanting to say Fresno State. When they go to a university and they need accommodations. So rather than in high school, and I apologize, I'm not up to date on other states as far as what they do in high school. In California, we review an individual education plan for the student, and then like there's a whole group of people that meet around that student, and they meet to review the plan for that student with a disability. Once they get to the university, it is up to the student whether or not they want to disclose their disability. So there's not a question on the application. There's not anything that, you know, we don't get files from the district that say, okay, these students had disabilities in high school, so here you go. They'll need accommodations in college. It is completely up to the student whether or not they want to request accommodations. So likewise, if they are participating in extracurricular activities, the student, it's completely up to the student if they want to request accommodations for activities. So if you're hosting any kind of activities for your chapter, it's really up to the student with the disability to request. However, there are some things that as a chapter you can be proactive in letting students know, letting sisters know that you are open to providing accommodations or looking into providing accommodations if they need them. And I'll show you some of those examples in just a little bit. What's your role? So your role, I keep talking about being an advocate. So what is being an advocate? You know, we all kind of have a basic understanding of what advocacy is and standing up for someone else. And really in this capacity, as a sister, your way of being an advocate for a student with a disability is honestly to know your resources and connect with them. So later on in this presentation, we also have Alexis did the great honor of finding each of the websites for the Disability Resource Center at your individual schools. So, you know, there's tons of titles for them. Ours is Services for Students with Disabilities. There's Disability Resource Center, Access and Ability Center. So whatever it is at your school, we have the website link for you. And, you know, I would I would encourage you all to go in, stop in, well, not go in now, sorry. Go to their website, see what accommodations they provide, see what you would need, what a student would need to do to set up services. Just know a little bit of background information. I know that as students, there's so many resources on campuses for students to access. And quite honestly, what, my hope is that the SSD office is lumped in with those resources that are just so common, like, oh, go to the Career Services Center, or go to the library, or go to the tutoring services, or the Learning Center, whatever, the health center, all those accommodations and resources that come up like nothing. Oh yeah, these are the resources that students can access. My hope is that one day the SSD office is mentioned in those, that list of resources, because we have so many students that could benefit from services. And so even just knowing the information, knowing where your office is located on campus, and how the phone number or the website, whatever it is, that's enough. And the reason for that is so that if you ever need to assist a sister or a student who's pledging to receive accommodations, you have that resource already. You know where to go, you know what website to go to, you know how to get that information. And again, remember, it's okay if you don't know the answers, just know how to find them. Have been doing this work for 6 years, 5 or 6 years. And I still find out new things about accommodations and new disabilities and how to accommodate disabilities. And so this is not something where I'm trying to give you all of the information about what accommodations to give to what students right now. But if I can just get you to know your resources and all that information, then that would be great today. And we're going to talk a little bit about just some basic examples of what to do, what not to do with students with disabilities. So this is in the event that you maybe already have a sister with a disability in your chapter, or maybe you end up having a sister with a disability in your chapter. So some of the information of what not to do, and I put these first because these are just general. I give entire presentations to faculty and staff on our campus of what to do and what not to do with students with disabilities, just individuals with disabilities. But so this is very quick. Again, this is quick information. But some of the key things is that you cannot ask questions about the person's disability unless they offer information. And of course, this is kind of a gray area. I was, thinking about this as I wrote this down, typed this out. You're in a sisterhood. I remember what that's like. I remember the connections that I made that you make with everyone around you. And I remember that, you get really close and you start to form relationships. And, this type of information could very well come up naturally, can be in your conversations. So I don't want you to feel like scared if someone brings up that information and you want to ask more information. That I don't want this to stop you. What I mean by you can't ask questions about the person's disability unless they offer it is you can't have a questionnaire on like an application to be a sister or to rush or whatever is done now. It's just that says, do you have a disability, yes or no? And if they say yes, you're okay, we're throwing that one out. You can't do that. You can't ask them, oh, if they have a guide dog with them or service animal, you cannot ask them, oh, well, what's your disability? I know you have a guide dog or a service animal, but what's the disability? Why do you need the dog? That kind of information. You also can't force the students to use accommodations. So if your sisters are disclosing to you and someone happens to say, oh yeah, no, I had a learning disability and I got some help in classes in high school. You can't then say, oh, well, you have to go to the SSD office and receive services. Like that's the only way that you can do school. You can't force the student because again, it's up to them. It's up to their accommodations. You're more than welcome to say, hey, have you thought about talking to the SSD office? That's, harmless, offering a resource just like you would offer if you're offering career services or the health center. But you can't force them to use the accommodations. You also can't disclose information about the person's disability to others. I would love it if everyone here could just like let that sink in for a second, because we still have faculty that have trouble with this. Bless our faculty's hearts, but they have some issues with not giving that information out loud to classes. And so if someone tells you that they have a disability, Sister A says, oh, I have a learning disability, or, oh, I have a psychological disability. You cannot go to Sister B and say, oh my gosh, did you know Sister A had this? Or, oh yeah, Sister A was telling me that they receive accommodations. You can't do that. So again, these are probably very basic. You all probably understand this. Again, be a good person. Stuff to do. So use person first language. So always state the person or to talk about the person before the disability. So I have some examples on the screen there. So student who uses a wheelchair, a student who is blind, or a student who is deaf. There's a gray area with the students who are deaf because there's a whole other class, whole other culture, but students who are deaf sometimes actually refer to deaf as with a capital D, and they are deaf or deaf or hard of hearing. And so that is actually a legitimate culture that they do refer to themselves as I am deaf, that the student is deaf. That is completely acceptable. And so that's side note right there. But for the purposes of this training, I will refer to the students who are deaf. And so quick information about these students, just because, yeah, right about midway, we have time and I don't have too many more slides. Students who use wheelchairs, just don't automatically touch the wheelchair. The wheelchair is an extension of their self. And so, if you are wanting to assist someone with a wheelchair, obviously, please ask them if you can assist them. They might ask you, but as far as touching the wheelchair or just automatically assuming that they need help to be pushed anywhere, that's a no-no. Just ask them, always ask if you need assistance. Do you need assistance? Can I assist you? That's always a good marker. Students who are blind, usually if they have a guide dog with them, a service animal, the service animal or guide dog is trained to stand on their left side. And so if you offer a hand or arm and you're saying, hey, can I lead you somewhere? Can I take you back to the room? Try to always stand on the right side of the person, and then offer your arm and let them know, I'm offering you my left arm. We're going to go, we're going to go straight and then make a right in a few paces and let them know. Also, it's a good idea to just announce when you are entering and leaving the room or entering and leaving a conversation. It might sound silly because we're not used to doing it. But if you're sitting with someone who is blind and you're having a conversation with them and you just leave, they don't know you just left unless you tell them. And another thing that's helpful, if you have a sister with a disability and you're doing a sister who is blind and you're doing an activity, it's always helpful to announce your name prior to speaking. So that way they can start to hear and match voices to names. And so if we were having a conversation right now, it'd be like, this is Belen, and then I'd say my piece. And then, Alexis could say, this is Alexis. And that way they're able to start identifying voices and names. And so that's something that we try to tell faculty too and get that in, but it's harder in class, especially with lots and lots of people. But that's something that can definitely be done when you are in a smaller group setting. And then students who are deaf, I think the main thing with this one is if they have an interpreter with them, Do not talk to the interpreter. So the interpreter is voicing for the student. However, you are having the conversation with the student, not the interpreter, right? They are just voicing for them. And so that's probably one of my biggest things with students who are deaf, is making sure that you are talking directly to the student when you're having that conversation. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was supposed to add something, and I'm going to turn something on right now. Are you guys able to see the captions at the bottom of the screen? Cool. Okay, so that's super easy. That's something that comes automatically on Google Slides. When you are hosting a presentation, you can click captions and it will automatically caption at the bottom of the screen. It's not perfect. I was trying it earlier, and some of the terminologies were not coming up correctly, especially when I got to like names and chapter names and things like that. But it works well enough to be able to assist someone who may be hard of hearing or deaf. So I'm just going to leave that on so you guys can see how that works. Okay, next. So this is a question that I have for you all. So just think about some of the flyers that you post out, and some of them, let's be real, are really pretty and they have great visuals, and someone works really hard with whatever program they use to create awesome flyers. But if someone couldn't use their eyes, would they be able to know the details of your event? So if it's an image, if it's a JPEG, a PNG, I think is another image, there's no way that a screen reader can access that information that's written on an image. Some PDFs, they can pick the wording up on a PDF. But if it's an image, it would not work. The screen reader would not be able to read it. PowerPoints, Google Slides are also not the best either for screen readers. So how do you do that? How do you advertise your activities? How do you advertise that you're accepting new candidates, that you have activities coming up and you want everyone to come, to students who may or may not have a disability? So really quick, again, could be an entire presentation on this topic. So this is very bare minimum information, but it'll get you through. So for recruiting and events, your flyers and social media accessibility, make sure that the event details are in the content of the email or the post. So if you're going to post an image on Facebook or you're going to post an image on social media, make sure you don't just say, here's an event, come and, come visit us or come join us in the content or the caption. Make sure that you actually put the details of the event, so that if they're using a telephone or a laptop, that the screen reader will pick that content up. Additionally, if you're sending an email out, let's say you have the marching band's emails and you're going to send an email to all of the marching band, you can also go on and add a Microsoft Word document with just the content. Nothing fancy, no bullets, no tables. It's not, the purpose of the Microsoft Word document is not to look good. It's to get the information for someone who uses a screen reader. And that's it. Add that. You can still have your fancy flyer and that good stuff, but put the content in a Microsoft Word document and attach it as well to the email that's being sent out. If you can't include attachments, with some listservs you might not be able to include attachments, you can just put the content in the actual email. Again, nothing fancy, just put the actual dates. We're meeting on this date at this time. And then include the accommodation statement. So this is something that we do at Fresno State. I'm sure that other schools have something very similar. Being from Fresno State, I'm just using the wording that I've used on flyers before. So this is a very appropriate way to advocate. This is, if you all just take this one thing away from this presentation today, you'll be good. I'll be happy. All participants are welcome. If you have questions or need accommodations, please call an active number or email, blah, blah, blah. That's not a real email. I just made it up, but put someone who's in charge of the event, designate a sister as like an accessibility ally, or designate an officer, someone who is willing to assist with this process, and keep it the same. Or if it needs to change from event to event, make sure that the person whose number and name are on here have the information of the disabilities office, so that they can come and request that information from the disabilities office if necessary. This statement basically just opens up, we are willing to be advocates for you. We are willing to provide accommodations. You just have to let us know. That's what that statement means. It doesn't mean that, you as a chapter are going to make sure that you have an interpreter, a captionist, and someone who can assist someone who's blind every event. That's not what you're saying. You're saying if someone who has a disability needs accommodations, you're welcome to come to this event. Just let us know. Let us know what's up. So that's, have it on everything. Okay. And then appropriate ways to advocate. I just put some questions. What supports do you need to participate, and what do you need us to help with? Those are very general questions that aren't asking about the individual's disabilities. They're not asking for more information than how can you be supportive as a fellow sister? How can you be supportive as a chapter to this person? And so that's, yeah. I think that's almost. So this is something that I'm taking it directly from Alexis, because Alexis brought this up, that she wanted an action plan for the chapters of the Western District to move forward with, because of course this is very important information. This is information, like I said, it's the law for universities to follow, and so it's just being a good person, having that action plan. What we would love to see is for there to be either a sister or an office position that is delegated to this task of accessibility, really, of being an advocate. Have that person meet with someone from the disability services program at your university and create a connection, even if it's just getting a name and an email, like, hey, can I contact you with questions? Yes, sure. That's great. That's perfect. Because then that's what you're going to do, is if you have questions, you can email that person. Sometimes there's a general staff email for the offices. Maybe that's the best email for them. But maybe you'll create a connection with an individual person that can be there and be your go-to person for anything moving forward. And then remember, if a student doesn't want accommodations, you can't force them. So I just kind of threw that on there because we do have a lot of students that, coming from high school or coming from a community college, they do have concerns with being seen a certain way and being perceived a certain way if they're using certain accommodations that are very obvious. And so, we have to be respectful of the students' time. And a lot of times we see students coming back their junior, senior year and saying, I tried to do it without accommodations and I just couldn't. I'm going to need accommodations now. That's very common at the university level. And so if they don't want it, all you can do is provide the information that, hey, we have a great resource center. If you want the information, here's the information. And those are the school site departments. So those are the websites for every university in the Western District, right? Yes, I think so. If there's something that we're missing, let us know. Alexis, will they get a copy of this presentation or these links, or should they take pictures or?
Yeah, and I think I messed up on Northern Arizona. I think it's NAU, not state. So am I correct, Megan and Hope? Did I mess that up? Sorry. We'll update it.
I know there was one of these had Fresno State's website twice, so I went and I changed that. So I don't know if maybe I messed that up either. So okay, so those are the school sites. We'll get the correct ones for the ones if they're incorrect. That's it. And then that's my information. So I tend to talk a lot, but I have plenty of time for questions if we have questions. I'm trying to figure out where to put this so I can see you all. Would anyone like to see the websites again for your school? Raise yes hand, or you guys are good? Cool. Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen because it's really just my name and information, and I can put that in the chat. So questions, and you please feel free to put them in the chat too. I can do the chat as well. No questions? What? That means you all are awesome already.
I mean, is there anything that anyone learned for the first time today?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think this is like great information. This isn't really something like I've considered before, and we haven't really discussed in the chapter, but I think creating an action plan and just making a place where we have those resources for when we need them in our chapter is a great idea. So I appreciate it. It's good information.
Right. You're welcome. Yes, I don't think I wanted to scare anybody that, oh my gosh, we're not doing something we should be, but definitely even if you're just thinking about that action plan and just having the information, having the phone number, a connection, that will help in the event that comes up in your chapter.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. Like, I definitely think this is important and is something we should be thinking about.
Thank you.
I never knew about the training the service dogs being on the left side and to always go on the right side. And it's one of those things that you wouldn't think about until you made that mistake. So thank you. I love preemptively knowing that.
Right. It's something that I'm sure I've seen it. I've seen it both ways. And if someone's very comfortable with their guide dog or their service animal, I think that they'll be able to move from side to side and not really say anything. But guide dogs are trained to be on their owner's left side. So we always recommend the right side just to help out.
This past year, we at Eta Omega had a sister who had needed some accommodations for I believe it was the first time, at least in a while. Mm-hmm. And so just going through figuring out how to use different accommodations for them and help them to, be able to do everything. So we had to change a couple of things, but learning more about how we can be open as sisters and as a chapter to everybody, I think is really great and something we should always keep in mind, because if you have that experience, you can be more welcoming to more people and understand where other people are coming from and their life experiences as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and sometimes this is just about being creative. I have a little Post-it note that I wrote down some points that I wanted to share with you guys, and I completely glossed over my little Post-it note over here. But students have every right to participate in the activity that you all enjoy so much, and that that we enjoyed when we were at that in college and at that space, and it's more so about finding how they can participate, rather than it might be uncomfortable to try to have to figure out new ways to complete an activity or a ritual. That might mean that you're bringing, interpreters in, you're bringing a laptop in to have the captioning with Google Slides, you're printing out the ritual ahead of time so that someone can follow with that material. It might mean thinking outside the box of what being a sister means to you right now. Right now we have our box, right, of our idea of what activities should look like, what rituals should look like. And when someone wants to participate and they have a disability, it's just, okay, it's not about like, oh, like, should we do this? Should we let them in? Like, this is going to change everything. It's how do we do this? How do we participate? How do we change this up so that this person can be a sister and can have this experience that we want? So yes, that's great to hear, Janelle, that you guys kind of maybe came up with some other accommodations that maybe hadn't been thought of before. And yeah, so great job. Any other questions or comments, or I won't say concerns, but I hope you don't have concerns at this moment.
I think one of the main reasons I was really wanting you to come on and to have as many sisters here as possible to see this was because I think it is timely and important, and it would be really great if our chapters could contact their offices, like Belen had said earlier, just try to create that connection and have as part of your post-membership education, bring somebody on. I think one of the best experiences I had as a employee at Fresno State is we have these advisor network meetings. And so like once a month, we'll have a meeting where a bunch of nonsense, we talk about a lot of stuff, right? But they actually brought on one of the professors in American Sign Language, and she did her entire presentation in ASL with an interpreter and taught us all sorts of really fascinating things about the culture. I knew 10% of it. Right? Like, and so it helped me be a better staff member, be a better advocate, be a better person. And those resources exist on every single college campus. And there's just no reason not to, even if you don't have anyone in your chapter who needs those types of accommodations, you never know when you yourself are going to be around in a place where you're going to need to understand, cultures of different types of individuals, right? And so I urge all of you to take this back to your chapter and really try to focus on trying to get maybe, a couple times a semester, some sort of a presentation done by somebody on campus, can make that connection with the Disability Services Office and try to bring those people in, because it'll be just useful in general. And so, yeah.
Yes. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments? I appreciate you guys letting me come and talk to you about accessibility for an hour. It's not like a yay topic. It's definitely not the social hours that I was reading about on the Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah,
but it's important.
It is. It is. Any other questions? Anything else anybody wants to ask or share out that they're thinking about wanting to do? Cool. All right. Well, thank you again, Belen, for your expertise and your time tonight. Really appreciate it. It's so great having a network of people. I think one more thing I wanted to say too is, I think it's helpful because I know that some chapters, if they have someone who needs an accommodation and happens to be an alum or somebody who's related to the organization in some way that can actually help out, it'd be really great if you guys could figure that out, right? And so, plug in with your alum reps in your chapter and try to just reach out and just kind of see if you have somebody who is an interpreter for a living, like does that for a job, or knows some, has all sorts of information about, all sorts of different things. So just like Belen is clearly a resource at Fresno State that the chapter can call on, but you never know, in the disability offices on your own campuses, there might be alum there or somebody who is, was in the band when they were in college, right? And so there might be a connection to make. So thank you again, Belen, for sharing tonight. And we'll definitely be posting this online for other sisters to see from other chapters. But yeah, thank you again, everybody, for attending tonight. I hope you guys have a really great evening. We have a whole host of activities throughout the rest of the week. Belen, you're more than welcome to come to any one of those if you're interested. And then obviously Friday evening, we have our awards ceremony where we'll be giving out awards to active members in the district and some alum.
Yay.
And just talking a little bit about some really great, exciting things to be looking out for on the horizon this year, including Western District Convention, our 75th anniversary for TBSigma. We're going to be celebrating that at Western District Convention and at National Convention in Michigan. So I'm stoked about that. Yeah, so lots more to come this week from Signature. So again, thank you very much, everybody, for attending tonight. And thank you, Belen, as well. And have a great evening, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.